This weekend, Belal Muhammad looks to defend his title against surging welterweight Jack Della Maddalena. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing my pre-fight breakdown where we take a look at fight clips from both fighters' last fight to see what strategies and techniques could be instrumental in the outcome of this one. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I think I've spotted a couple of things that could be instrumental on the result of this fight, and I'll end with my final prediction. Hello guys and welcome back to Alex on MMA. Now this matchup is really interesting, both stylistically and from the fans' perspective, and I'm going to be as objective as possible in this fight breakdown. I know that Belal Muhammad seems to be one of the most hated fighters currently in the UFC roster, definitely the most hated champion. But in this breakdown, we're purely going to be looking at the technique, what both fighters bring to it. And JDM, all these Australian fighters who've got a bit of good chat, seem to be adored by the fans, and he's no different to the others. You can see him training with Craig Jones. His popularity's surging. Belal Muhammad should just go full heel at this point and really bring on the hate, but I feel like he still wants to be loved by the fans. And if he puts on a spectacular performance this weekend, he could make that happen. But like I said, before we get into looking at the clips, stylistically, this is a really interesting matchup. As Belal Muhammad, you know, he's the come forward, pressure fighter, get your back against the fence, which is a place where JDM really needs to avoid being in this fight. But Belal Muhammad will push your back against the fence and then get that takedown. Whereas Jack Della Maddalena loves holding the centre of the octagon, using his strikes, really crisp boxing to force his opponents back. And I think that's going to be a real interesting situation for this fight. Who can hold the centre of that octagon? And we're going to be taking a deep dive into the footwork in this video as well, because I believe that JDM's, particularly his boxing footwork, is just levels above Belal Muhammad. And if he can force the fight to be fought on his terms, it could have a real advantage for him in this one. But let's face it, Belal Muhammad is the more experienced opponent so far, fought better competition, and he just seems to be improving with performance after performance. And I feel like this always happens. You start to believe in a guy once he wins the title, has a defense, very similar to Leon Edwards. You think this guy's in his prime now, then he falls short. And could this be that fight for Belal Muhammad? I'm not too sure. But anyway, with that being said, let's take a look at the first fight clip. And we're going to take a look at one thing that I think is so important for JDM in this fight, and it's keeping his back off the fence. So let's see first how Belal Muhammad kept Leon Edwards back against the fence, and if he can do the same to JDM. Okay, so this sequence is going to show us a lot of different things from Belal Muhammad's game, but it also includes a shot that really did seem to hurt Leon Edwards in this fight. So it's a nice uppercut, whilst Belal Muhammad's on the front foot. And maybe the pop in Belal Muhammad's shots is something that is fairly underrated, but he lands a nice uppercut on Leon Edwards, and he's just following him there. But Leon Edwards' shape seems to be all over the place here, and for a fighter who you normally admire for how crisp his striking is, how solid his striking is, his shape was all over the place here. But either way, he gets cracked with a good uppercut by Belal Muhammad. And then this is what we see Belal Muhammad doing against everyone. Let's keep it playing forward. I've just moved it forward a few frames here. And this is what Belal Muhammad does all the time. A nice solid jab that just splits the guard of Leon Edwards. Let's keep it playing. Another jab. These are just keep busy punches in your face, because we all know what Belal Muhammad's really going for. There's very little on these punches. They're more tap. Colby Covington used to do a very similar thing. A nice shot to the body there. Left hook to the body. But then this is what Belal Muhammad really wants. Throwing a load of punches in your face to get your arms up. And then that level change. And he completes the takedown there. And that's why I'm saying, for JDM's sake, it's so important that he keeps his back off the fence. I put in the title of this video, Stop the Takedown. And you know that Belal Muhammad's confidence in the first and second round, before you get into those championship rounds, his confidence will level up if he's able to get JDM down early and have some kind of control. So for JDM's sake, if he's going to have success in this fight, keep your back off the fence. I know that Gilbert Burns had some success in taking him down in the centre of the octagon, but not really against the back of it. And as you can see here, JDM has his hands up. And then, interestingly enough, rather than forcing Gilbert Burns back to the fence, this is just a little detail here, he takes a couple of back steps when they are closer, moving closer towards there. Yes, he gets caught by a jab, but he moves backwards. He doesn't try and fight fire with fire here, and then he retakes position in the centre of the octagon. It seems like this is the most comfortable place for him to be. And yes, Gilbert Burns was able to take him down here, and he took him down a few times in this fight. I know that apparently JDM only had one working arm in this fight, but Gilbert Burns was able to take Jack Della Maddalena down in the centre of the octagon a few times. It was when JDM was being a little bit overeager with his striking. Gilbert Burns was able to level change and get him down there. But Belal Muhammad, you don't really see him doing these takedowns in the centre of the octagon. I'm not saying that it's something that he can't do against JDM, because I think he will have the superior grappling, and if that's the only option, I'm sure he'll go for that takedown. But as we saw in that previous clip, Belal Muhammad's game is built around pressure, getting his opponents back against the fence through good striking. I'm not saying it's any kind of fluke he's doing it. Good, solid striking, getting the fighters really busy, dealing with heavy combinations in their face, and then level changing and getting takedowns against the fence. But in JDM's last fight, you didn't see that. He was kind of dictating the range and the areas in the octagon where the fight was fought. But then still, in the middle of the octagon, he was getting taken down. And in my notes, I have put that JDM needs to meet fire with fire. And that might seem like quite an obvious statement, given that Belal Muhammad's a pressure come-forward fighter who wants to put the pressure on you and get you moving backwards. But as you can see in this clip, Belal Muhammad is very hittable. And if you're prepared to hold your feet against the pressure fighter, you can have some success. In this sequence with Leon Edwards, you can see Belal Muhammad does his usual thing, reaches out with a jab, tries to move his feet forward. They're pretty much standing on each other's feet there. Belal Muhammad's banking on Leon Edwards moving backwards. And it's just disguised by the camera there. But Leon actually cracks Belal with one of the better shots in this fight for him. It gets a big reaction out of him. And then Belal Muhammad's right hand goes nowhere near Leon Edwards. He's able to lean back and get out of the way of that follow-up shot. But this is just one example I found that if you are prepared to hold your feet against Belal Muhammad and not let him dictate where the fight is fought, hold your feet and throw some strikes back of your own. Belal Muhammad is not the sharpest striker. I know that he has had success and he's definitely got more power in his shots than he used to have, but he doesn't have great hand speed, he doesn't have great combinations, so I think that JDM will have the advantage there. It's more a question of if he's able to withstand Belal Muhammad's pressure, not allow himself to be forced back, even when he's getting tired, if he's been taken down a couple of times, if he's just prepared to hold his feet and fire some shots back. And that's going to move us nicely into talking about footwork. Because like I said, I think JDM's boxing footwork is superb. I think it's really solid. And I think that Belal Muhammad's is really lacking. And that's not to say that I think JDM's going to win this fight purely off that basis. We've seen what Belal Muhammad can do, like he did against Sean Brady when he turns fights really ugly, gets up in your face. He can win the fight like that. But if footwork is going to be a key component to this fight, then JDM has the advantage. Look at these clips for a direct comparison. And I'm conscious that this might make me sound like I'm just piling on the Belal Muhammad hate, but I really do not rate his footwork in MMA. I don't think that he gets his feet out of the way enough. I think he's fine when he's moving forward and dictating the fight and dictating the pressure. But as you can see here, and Leon Edwards, he'll definitely be kicking himself that he didn't make more of this. Leon Edwards lands a nice solid shot to the chest. This is a bit of a rangefinder shot for that right hand, which just narrowly skims off Belal Muhammad. But as you can see here, Belal Muhammad just stays still. His feet are planted directly behind him. And Leon Edwards is able to land a nice left hook that just clips the chin of Belal Muhammad. Fair enough, he shows a great chin. And rather than him angling off, it's almost as though that shot forces him to angle off. But really, in that kind of situation, once Leon Edwards, I'll just move it back so you can see what I mean. Here you go. So once Leon Edwards lands that jab to the body, sorry, it's a backhand because he's in southpaw stance. Once he lands that backhand to the body and that hook there's no reason for Belal Muhammad to stay in this position unless he's getting off a counter shot. But he's already thrown that left hook. Here, he should either be coming straight back with the right hand to Leon Edwards' chin, which is down, or be circling out the way. But he just keeps his feet planted there for a while. And you've seen the boxing of Jack Della Maddalena. We're about to look at a clip now where he uses footwork really nicely in and out. Jack Della Maddalena won't be there to be hit, but also he's going to take advantage of Belal Muhammad if his feet are there. And I'm sure this is giving a lot of hope to JDM fans out there because they'll all be rooting for their guy to win. But I think if it is a boxing match, if there's footwork, there's only one winner. But this is mixed martial arts. Anyway, let's take a look at JDM's footwork so you can see what I'm talking about. So there's actually two sequences that I want to show you to help demonstrate my point here. The first one would be, I guess, if Belal Muhammad and JDM are both stood in range, why I think JDM's got the advantage there with footwork. And the other one is if Belal Muhammad is forced to retreat, how JDM can still make him pay there. So as you can see in this clip, Gilbert Burns throws a long left hook that JDM ducks under, and he returns with a left hook of his own, or it's kind of like a left hook or a backhand there, which forces Gilbert Burns back. And then another left to the body. Okay, now this is what I want to show you now. The footwork is fantastic by JDM. He's really light and bouncy on his feet, not like we saw from Belal Muhammad there. And as Gilbert Burns is about to throw a right hand, he actually pulls it in the end, because this little step from JDM just takes him out of harm's way. You can see he's so bouncy, not quite a karate stance, but it's more of like a kickboxing stance where he's really light on his feet and he gets himself in and out of range. And that's what I think is going to be really important in this fight. If this is fought at a range, a kickboxing range, particularly at the start of the fight, JDM really needs to focus on that movement, getting in with his strikes and then getting out of range as well. Avoiding clinch positions, avoiding counters from Belal, which will start his momentum building. And then let's take a look at the other aspect of footwork, which is when JDM's on the front foot. He can follow Belal Muhammad round the ring all day and get shots off. And as we're about to break down this sequence, I actually don't think JDM will need to do as much movement as this. Because just going back to that previous Leon Edwards Belal Muhammad clip where I said how Belal Muhammad held his feet, you can see here that, again, Gilbert Burns throws a jab that JDM slips out the way, lands a left hand of himself, and then just follows him round the ring. Left hand to the head, left hand to the body. That's the second time we've seen it here. A cracking right hand to the head again, and a hook. Just absolutely smothers Gilbert Burns. JDM's going to have to make sure that he's able to get Belal Muhammad on the back foot as well. And if he is able to do that, he could have a lot of success in this fight. And I'm going to have to bring the JDM fans back down to earth, because we know that Belal's speciality isn't kickboxing, it's grappling. So let's take a look at a really nice takedown, really devastating takedown by Belal Muhammad against Leon Edwards, and how JDM did find himself in similar positions against Gilbert Burns. There are a lot of details that I don't want to miss in this breakdown, so it might seem as though I'm really racing through these clips, but hopefully it's painting some kind of narrative so far. It might seem fairly obvious that yes, JDM's going to have the advantage on the feet, but the extent to which I think he's going to have this advantage, particularly with his strengths being footwork and Belal's weaknesses being lack of footwork, especially on the back foot, could have a big impact here. So Belal Muhammad has Leon Edwards pressed up against the fence, which is a very common theme from their fight at Succumb in the UK. And he has his hands locked, a body lock position there, and he's about to switch his grip. So you can see his right hand now going under the groin of Leon Edwards. His left hand's now clasping the other one in a gable grip. He's gone from a body lock to a high crotch position. He gets his hips nicely under Leon Edwards. And this is when Leon Edwards is going to go for a ride. This is probably, I think on the YouTube highlights, you know, where it says most replayed. This is the most replayed moment of this fight. I'm not sure how much of an indictment that is of how interesting or not this fight was. But this was a pretty good moment for Belal Muhammad. Dumps Leon Edwards right on his head there. And a pretty devastating look for the judges. If you see someone getting taken down during a round, we know that with the UFC scoring criteria, that might not mean all that much now. But by dumping someone on their head and the impact of that, that's going to score points. And let's take a look at this clip from the JDM against Gilbert Burns fight. So in this fight, fairly early on in the first round, Gilbert Burns had JDM pressed up against the octagon. But whereas Leon Edwards, once he was clinched up against the fence, seemed as though he wanted to engage more in a grappling match and try and reverse position, JDM was throwing shots at Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns was throwing shots at JDM. And JDM just tried this really nice outside trip. Somebody give me the Japanese name for it. It's completely slipped my mind. And he was able to trip Gilbert Burns and get out of the position there. He goes for a knee, which was very close to being illegal, but ultimately was able to get separation there. And look, I'm not saying that Gilbert Burns is as good at takedowns as Belal Muhammad is. I think Gilbert Burns is better on the ground. He's got better jiu-jitsu. but purely in terms of getting fighters down against the fence, Belal Muhammad is the best in that division, unless Islam Makhachev decides to come up. So you can't really compare apples for oranges there, because it is a very different sequence. But the point being, I'm expecting JDM to put up more of a fight there, be it with the strikes or with reversals of his own. And as we're about to see, Belal Muhammad can get taken down. He can get reversed. Leon Edwards did real damage to Belal Muhammad after reversing position in that final round. And as a disclaimer, we are going to be showing some more pro Belal Muhammad stuff very shortly. But here he had a good position taking Leon Edwards back against the fence. And I don't know if he just got over eager for the takedown, but he went from having the good back control to allowing too much of a gap that Leon Edwards was able to exploit by getting a body lock of his own, popping his head out from that grip, and taking Belal Muhammad's back. And he was able to take him down from this position. So Belal Muhammad's grappling is very effective, but he's also shown vulnerabilities at time from getting reversed, the elbows at the end of the Leon Edwards fight. All these things should give JDM a lot of hope. But now I'm going to show the other side of things, and it is more Belal's relentless pressure is not to be underestimated. Because it's all well and good and saying JDM just needs to not give in to the pressure, but the pressure is insane. And JDM's stance, he's got quite a tall kickboxing stance. It does leave him vulnerable to the takedown. JDM does stand with his feet fairly close together, so he stands very tall, keeps his hands fairly high, and this gives opportunities for fighters like Gilbert Burns to get in on double legs, on single legs, because his feet aren't far apart. Leon Edwards actually stands with his feet further apart than JDM does, but when you stand with your feet close together and your hands high, it does allow your opponent the opportunity to dip their level and grab both of your legs. And as you can see here, as we spoke about earlier, the takedown in the centre of the octagon. In fairness to JDM, he doesn't think about getting himself involved in a grappling match like Leon Edwards does. His first thought is about getting back to his feet. He showed some really good skills in his scrambles in that fight. And it's for all these reasons why I think this is going to be such an interesting fight, both stylistically in terms of what the fighters have done beforehand and the adaptations that they make in this fight. Because JDM knows that if he does stand tall with his feet together, Belal Muhammad isn't going to waste much time on the feet there. And on Belal Muhammad's side, he knows that he needs to be a bit quicker with his feet. If he holds his feet for too long, he's really at risk of eating some bombs from JDM. And thank you guys who have stuck around to this point of the video, because there is one opening for JDM that I think could be really, really integral to this fight. And it is the way that Belal Muhammad really seems to enjoy his right kick now. He uses it as both a rangefinder and to force his opponent on the back foot. And JDM loves countering off this high kick. So let's take a look at these clips and see if you think this is going to be instrumental on who wins this fight. Okay, so when I first took a look at the right kick of Belal Muhammad, whether it's to the head or to the body like in this clip, I was kind of admiring the way that he uses it all together with his other combinations to get his opponent on the back foot. He's really good at finding that target underneath the elbow. And we're just going to keep it playing forward here. This is just relentless pressure. We're in round 3 at this point. And Leon Edwards just made it far too easy for him. He pushed his elbow up there. I mean, there was very little resistance there. Belal Muhammad uses his left hand just to push up Leon Edwards' elbow and get the takedown. And it was just relentless pressure from there on in. But then I took a look at the Gilbert Burns fight and saw how JDM reacted when Gilbert Burns was throwing a right kick, how he got his counters off. And I thought that this could have a real part to play in this fight coming up this weekend. Let's take a look at this. I could be completely wrong, but look, if this does end up happening and JDM counters a right kick from Belal Muhammad and wins the fight via that way, I want all of you to come back to this video and let me know how good this breakdown was. So, we're into round 3 here, and it was a very close fight, people forget. Here, Gilbert Burns goes a bit higher with the kick than Belal Muhammad did. And JDM catches it. He blocks it with his left hand and then catches it with his right hand. Really, really sneaky. Look what he does here. So he allows Gilbert Burns' foot to go back down, dips his head off the centre line, and then comes over the top with a right hand of his own. Cracks Gilbert Burns. Then the left uppercut. These kind of combinations is what we didn't see from Leon Edwards. And if Belal Muhammad, which he will do, will be holding his feet like that, JDM could get off a lot of shots on him. And again, he gets his feet out of there in case there's a counter coming from Gilbert Burns. feet out, feet back in, nice combination. Feet out to avoid that counter back. JDM's striking is so good. I hope that this breakdown has given you an appreciation of it so far. And I think I've looked at everything so far that really has told me. I'm just looking at my notes here. The first point of keeping, JDM needs to keep his back off the fence. Both fighters want to hold the center of the octagon. JDM wants to stay there, whereas Belal Muhammad wants to force you back when he's got the center. I said that JDM needs to meet fire with fire if he wants to have success in this fight. Belal Muhammad will want to dictate the pace, make sure that he's got JDM on his heels. JDM cannot allow that to happen, or we could have a repeat of the Leon Edwards fight. We spoke about footwork. JDM's just levels above Belal Muhammad when it comes to striking footwork. And Belal does seem to hold his feet for too long. Whether he's just got off a combination or the other fighter's striking against him, he takes a little while getting out the way. In terms of the grappling, I think that JDM will just be focusing on his defensive grappling. I can't see him initiating any takedowns, but we've seen that Belal can be reversed from his position. He's a very strong grappler. If he gets top position and holds you there, he will do so. But JDM's shown ability to scramble and get out of bad positions. When you look at this matchup, and I am moving on to my final prediction now, when you look at this matchup, I think you'll know which way the fight's heading within the first round. If Belal Muhammad gets his confidence going, you can see JDM on his heels just trying to pop out of his jab, stay out of range, then I think Belal Muhammad will eventually get to you. But in all the fights we've seen of JDM so far, how often does he do that? Very rarely. He does meet fire with fire, which means that some of his fights are closer than they otherwise would be. The Gilbert Burns fight up until the finish was a very close fight, but that's because JDM puts himself in situations where he can get taken down or he can eat the odd shot. But overall, the guy's on an absolute tear. And that's the way that I think this fight's going to go. You probably could imagine that based on what you saw in the video breakdown so far. It might seem quite pro JDM, but really I think that Belal's game is a little bit less nuanced to understand. Yes, there are complexities in his grappling and the different takedowns that he goes for, but his game, we've seen it, is very fairly similar. Put your opponent under a lot of pressure, get their back against the fence, and if you can take them down like Leon Edwards, sure. And if you've got to strike with them, then you can strike against inferior strikers like he did against Sean Brady. But in this fight, I do think that JDM's footwork is going to get him out of a lot of trouble. I think that he'll be able to angle off when Belal Muhammad starts putting him under pressure. I think he'll be able to get off some really nice strikes. And I can see him winning a decision here. I think Belal's toughness will see him through to the final bell. I can see him ending up in a similar position as he did against Leon Edwards at the end of the 5th round. Bloodied and bruised, but still hanging in there. I think that JDM will take this one by decision. I think he'll outland Belal Muhammad on the feet. I think he'll get taken down quite a few times during this fight, but be able to get himself back up to his feet without taking any real damage. So my overall prediction for this one is JDM to win via decision. Let me know what you guys think. I know this has been quite a long video. Hope you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Comment below who you think wins this one. And I'll see you guys later.